Alrighty guys, we are live here from PBH in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you're new to the show, you probably won't be noticing anything different right now, but if you have been watching the show and some of the videos we've been doing up to now, you'll notice that the backdrop is a little bit different today. We've got some new lighting, got a new camera that we can speak into. Overall, the setup is pretty new. I think it's going to work out okay, so I want to get a sound check from you guys to let me know that you can hear me clearly. Looks like the audio output is working. Just let me know in the comment section, in the chat, if you can hear me clearly and see me clearly, if everything looks okay, if it's blurry, any of that stuff, so I can get some feedback on the show itself before we get rolling. Once we get that stuff here, we'll get some introductions done. Yep, people are telling me you can hear me. Thumbs up, any of that stuff will help. I am Frank Perdomo. I work here at PBH Performance, Power by the Hour Performance, as we're officially known. We're in West Palm Beach, Florida, here at the end of the runway at Palm Beach International Airport. We are Coyote swap specialists. We also work deeply with 6R80s and 10R80 transmissions as well. A lot of our customers are in the live chat and can tell you firsthand, if you're new to the show, that there is a lot of information to be gained here, and we can help you with a lot of the projects that you would use our products on, and some general tech and general life advice. Let's see here. Everybody's saying, okay, good. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight, in particular, as far as a tech topic, is the 6R80 transmission, its cooling system, and what you can do to improve it or use it in your project. Mainly Coyote swap stuff, I think we're going to be covering. But in general, 6R80 usage across the board. We do have some products like our AN fittings and our cooler kits that we'll talk about, but basically in general how the system works and what are the components that you know about, what are the components that you probably don't know about, and how to identify them as they pertain to the cooling system itself. This has been something that this has been something that we get questions through email from customers during installation, even shops in particular, that we want to cover and put it in a video here so we can talk about it a little bit. Then we'll get into some general topics in the chat room. If you have a question that you definitely want us to get to, there is a super chat available that basically is in front of me, and I can't avoid those questions, and we'll answer those as a priority over the others. If you have a question in the text section or in the chat room, try to keep it till after the discussion and we'll go over that information as much as possible. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the email address for the shop, info@pbhperformance.com. That email address comes directly to me. If you have any tech questions, something we didn't cover in the show or something you need to expand on or maybe show you or send you some of the diagrams that we use in the video, we can do that just right through that email in particular. Also, after the video, if you're watching this as a replay, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section. We will be there to answer those questions as well. You can email us. You can even call us, 561-737-2331. YouTube isn't the only place you can find us online. We are on Facebook and on Instagram. Just search Power by the Hour Performance on Facebook and PBH Performance on Instagram. And our hashtag is PBH Equipped if you have any of our components. Website, pbhperformance.com, has all the products that we're going to be talking about tonight. Maybe not all of them. There is one product I'm going to cover that isn't something that we have in the catalog itself, but as far as our transmission cooling products, like our AN fitting kit and our transmission cooler kit, are all going to be found on there, along with all the rest of our PBH Performance product catalog. So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We got a bunch of guys we need to say hello to in the chat room. It is fired up tonight. First guy to the chat was 2000 MCR. You win tonight, sir. I think you posted about 2 hours ago in the chat room to say you were the first to say first. Brett Caspers, what's going on? What's going on, Rob? Ford More Performance, what is a 6R80? It is a dominant transmission in the Ford arena, sir. That's what a 6R80 is. Automatic transmission, 6-speed. And there's its sister, the 10R80. Let's see here. Joe Leslie, what's going on? Shannon Dugan, what's going on, brother? Your engine is underway and in the shop and being worked on actively. So we'll probably get some more progress. I'll get you guys some pictures there tomorrow on that, buddy. Zionis can hear me. Thank you. Tony Tycoon. We'll get to those questions towards the end, brother. Mr. King, what's going on? Brett Caspers. Who else am I missing here? Terry Siberus. Terry Siberus. I think I'm saying it right. Tell me if I'm saying it right. Kimbo Slice, what's going on, brother? 100%, 100 over 100. Mike Vasquez, what's going on? Let's see here. Shannon Duke. Yes, we got the shirts, Shannon. They're with the engine. They will be going to you. And for more performance, thank you for the support already, brother. You guys are the best. Awesome customer service and badass pricing. PBH for life. Order you and Christian Papa some lunch or beer or something on me. Great. Absolutely, man. I'll do that. Well, actually, we have our team breakfast on Friday morning. We'll use that money towards that. How about that? Brandon Roberson just joining now. Lorenzo Enzo. Terry Cyrus. Or just Terry. I like the last part, though, man. I like saying that. Yes, I still do have a mustache. It is not on accident. This is on purpose. Eric Schraven. I think I said that correctly as well. Correct me if I don't say your names right. I'd like to know exactly how to say them. 2000 MCR says, I'm not a baby, I'm a man, and Anchorman. Thank you so much for more comments on the mustache. All right, so topic of the night, 6R80 transmission. Oh, a little bit more house cleaning. Hats. If anybody wants a hat, I know Terry got his order in today. It'll be going out tomorrow, brother. We do have black and gray hats available for fans of the show. These are the black and gray options. They are $25. Continental US, ships USPS. If you want a hat, all you have to do is email me. At the bottom, you'll see... Oh, did it not work? Maybe it didn't work. There we go. Hold on a second. Let me shut off studio mode. Here we go. There we go. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see my personal email, frank@pbhperformance.com. This email is to be used to get a hold of me directly as well. And if you want to order a hat, that way I can send you a PayPal link. You can pay it and get the order placed. It's not on our website right now. We're working on a solution to that. In fact, I heard today the test pieces of that solution would be shipping today. So hopefully by the next show next week, you'll be seeing wearing some PBH Live swag. It'll be pretty cool. But in the meantime, black or gray, we do have them. They're all trucker, one size fits all, black on black, gray on gray. We're going to try to get some new options for you guys here shortly. Put those back. They are Richardson 112s, by the way. What else do I need to cover before we get going into the tech stuff here? Everything looks good. Does everything look good to you guys? I think it looks pretty good, man. I'm looking at my monitors here. What do you guys think of the new backdrop? The retro colors? I'm excited about it. I'm a blue and pink kind of guy. I think it looks pretty snazzy. Been using some of the donations you guys have given me to buy some equipment, including this new camera, those LED lights, soft lights, all that stuff. So it definitely goes back into the show to help the production quality of the show itself. No longer using my cell phone, which is pretty cool. All right, so 6R80 transmissions. 6R80 transmissions, where are they? How do I find one? I already have one. Tell me more about the cooling system as part of the topic of the show. Some background information on the 6R80 transmission. It was started becoming available all the way back, I believe, to 06, 07. They were in a lot of the Expeditions. The Expeditions had them with a TCM. Those transmissions aren't exactly what you would use in the case of a 6R80 swap with a Coyote motor because the computer does not control the transmission. It becomes a little bit of a problem. Let's sip of water there. So, we're mainly going to be talking about the 6R80 transmissions you would find in a 2011 to 2017 Mustang or F-150. Those transmissions are the ones that you're going to be using with the control packs that are readily available for your 5-liter Coyote engine, whether it's F-150 or Mustang. What we're talking about tonight also applies to 4-wheel drive transmissions as well as 4x2 transmissions, which is what you find in the Mustangs or F-150s. 6R80 transmissions, for the most part, are rated to about 800 newton meters of torque, and that can, or excuse me, horsepower. That can really level out to about 550 horsepower by the math, but guys can regularly take them up to about 600 horsepower before they really run into some issues. Now, the issues you're going to run into if you take it beyond 600 horsepower or really start leaning on it, giving it hard shifts and wheel hopping it, well, the issues you could potentially run into, and this is all for Ryan Merrill, who made a suggestion to cover this stuff before we got into it. Frictions and steels, Naturally, friction is a big part of how a transmission works. It's full of clutches, and it's got steels in between, like pressure plates and flywheels, how it will work in a manual transmission, but in multitude, using fluid to go ahead and lubricate things and cool it and allow it to slip on command. So, naturally, if we add more clutches and it fits inside the case and they can properly engage and disengage, we can increase the power, and that's what you do with a 6R80 rebuild kit from PBH. We add extra frictions and steels. It allows you to bring the grip, the load potential of the 6R80 up tremendously. But on top of that, there is one initial component that typically will break, and it is the intermediate shaft. So in a stage 1 rebuild, what you want to concentrate on are frictions and steels, adding some extra frictions and steels like we offer with our Raybestos GPZ frictions, and then getting the intermediate shaft upgraded to like a 300M style shaft that we offer from TCS. Now those factory shafts, it's not that they're not really built wrong, it's just the production process that they use. They're sintered and they can fail. And when they fail, they crack, and then you lose drive. You get stuck in a high gear or low gear or something like that. So we have the 300M style shafts that improve that tremendously and basically resist, and they never break. If you break a robust, upgraded 300M shaft, most likely it was bad from the beginning, which is super, super rare, or something catastrophic happened in the transmission. Additionally, if you send a transmission to us, we also do a center support upgrade, which we do offer on our website as well. It's not part of our stage 1 kit, but we recommend it for all stage 1 rebuilds. Take that center support drum, it's aluminum, we hog it out, put a bronze bushing in there. It increases the amount of heat that it can handle because the aluminum can kind of break down with a certain amount of heat in that area on that drum, so it's highly recommended to do that as well. Mercon LV fluid, have not run into anything that is better than the Mercon LV fluid out there. Changing your filter regularly, checking your fluid level is key. Fluid level is the Achilles heel of the 6R80 along with tuning. Tuning is a huge part of the 6R80 as well. So obviously we're talking about fluid, we're talking about heat. Cooling is going to be a big part of that, which we're going to get to here in a second. For the guys who are making big power, let's say really beating the snot out of their 6R80 at the track, big gooey tires, sticky track, hard shifts, wheel hopping, all that stuff, you're going to move into the arena where you need to start talking about your forward planetary, your main shaft, and your rear splagger, one-way clutch. Those components are really designed to shore up the 6R80. You can option it up the unit all the way up to close to $10,000 if you get it all together. But at that point, it's about as robust as it's going to be able to become without putting a billet case on the damn thing, which you don't really need in the first place. So, now that we have our general 6R80 information out there, I can tell you the 6R80 transmissions, they can handle a range of power. Let's say, if I told you they can handle up to 1,200 horsepower, but you got 1,300 or 1,400 horsepower, I think they can still handle the abuse, but there's going to be a time limit and amount of runs that you can really put through it before you have to go back through it. And if you're making 1,300, 1,500 horsepower, any transmission you buy is going to have a shorter service cycle regardless. So it is on par with what you can get out of other performance transmissions, but the key is you can control it with a stock computer. That means you get the converter lockup, which is a really great feature and hard to do with older style rebuilt transmissions that are high performance. So the 6R80 transmission, with or without our 4R200 hub, is a very robust transmission, has a lot of potential, and we love working with it. It shifts great on the highway. It really has a lot of room to grow with you performance-wise out of the box, right from a Ford factory donor vehicle, and then with a couple upgrades, can handle a lot of abuse. I would say our stage 1 rebuild kit, we call it a 1,000 horsepower kit because I think with turbo cars and centrifugal blowers, it really can handle that amount of power if you make it. But if you're really beating the snot out of it, there's going to be some other upgrades, and the power potential kind of comes down because you are beating the snot out of it. So there's a range of power. Let's say 800 to 1,000, I'd say comfortably. Now that that's covered, let's talk about the transmission cooler on these 6R80 transmissions. Now, Generation 1 6R80s all have a thermal bypass in them that basically works just like a thermostat on an engine. The fluid range that they're designed to operate at is usually in the 200 to 230 degree operating range. It's very similar to your cooling system and even your oiling system on the engine. Now, that thermal bypass is located just inside of the transmission, connected to the valve body, and where the transmission cooler fittings go into the transmission, it's basically straddling this bypass. Now, from the factory, you're going to have these steel hard lines that are pre-bent, manufactured to fit specifically in your S197 or S550 Mustang, which works great. Obviously, when you're putting in another vehicle, sometimes, or most of the time, you're not going to be reusing that stuff unless you want to fabricate them to work for your usage or try to make them fit, rebend them. That's kind of silly and crazy. There are some nice components out there. You don't have to use ours every time, but there are components out there to make your life a lot easier when it comes to fitting a transmission cooler. Now, your Generation 1 F-150 and Mustangs are going to have a traditional cooler system. Bypass is going to be inside the transmission. Lines are going to come out. They're going to go up to a cooler that's mounted up front in front of the radiator. Now, I'll show you a quick picture of what that looks like. Let's look at a 6R80 Mustang cooling system. 6R80 Mustang cooling system, as you can see, you have the cooler fittings that are built into the lines. They do not come loose. They are all steel and kind of welded together, and they go right into the side of the transmission. They get held down by a hold down bolt with integrated bracket and start working their way along the bell housing across the transmission. They have all these really cool spots to hook up to and go up to the transmission cooler unit, the core itself, which is up on and in front of the radiator. Now, could you use this in your Coyote swap? I would say if you can fit all this in your Coyote swap, absolutely. There really is nothing wrong with the factory cooling system. Now, in a factory car, one of the reasons why you would want to change this is if you're boosted. You got a big intercooler, you got a big heat exchanger, you want to move the transmission cooler away from those sources that are more sensitive to heat, and maybe you want to put it underneath the car, in a bumper, in the back of the car, maybe even help you balance some weight, or for safety. There is good reason to put the transmission cooler in the back in case you have a failure or something like that. You don't want all that transmission fluid maybe going under the front and rear tires. It could help in that regard, but the factory stuff works great on a factory car. There's very limited reasons why you would have to move it. Very few times do I have guys really running into issues with transmission temperature unless they have something wrong in the transmission itself, something wrong with the cooler itself, or they got a 4-inch intercooler in front of it, a heat exchanger. They got AC on, all this crazy stuff, plus the boost, plus the heat exchanger, plus the intercooler. Then potentially you could run into a problem and would lead you to end up changing something up. Now, we mentioned the bypass is integral to the transmission itself. Now, I'm going to tell you that some of the later 6R80 transmissions that you found in, let's say, a F-150 would have an external bypass, an external cooler with an auxiliary option. So 15 to 17 F-150 6R80s are different than 15 to 17 Mustang 6R80s in this regard. Your 15 to 17 F-150 6R80s have an external bypass. Now, the external bypass is up near the radiator core support. It's a fluid-to-fluid cooler, and it's got water going to it, similar to an oil cooler. It gets a little messy. There's a lot of hoses involved. Now, if you have an F-150 and you have cooling issues, this is a particular problem because you cannot add an additional cooler between the transmission and this bypass. You want the bypass to function just like it would in a Mustang and open at its set temperature and then flow through the cooler. Now, that's important because if the transmission's too cold, let's say you don't have a bypass. I got rid of my thermostatic bypass and now I have it bypassed. It's just flowing all the time. Well, the transmission is designed to operate at a certain temperature. If fluid is not at a certain temp, it has a certain thickness, it could throw off the way pistons work, the way certain bearings are pressurized, and could shift erratically. And if it's shifting erratically or having issues with those components, it could lead to failure. Doesn't mean you're going to fail every single time. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you have to be mindful of that stuff. So if you are planning on bypassing this thermostatic bypass, which is an option, obviously Ford does it because it has an external bypass, be mindful of your transmission temperatures before you get going. So let me show you what an F-150 15 to 17 has that a Mustang doesn't have at all across the generations. And it's this guy. Whoa. this is a lot of, well, this is a lot of shit. This is a lot of stuff going on. What did I just buy? And in this picture in particular, this is what you would find on a 6R80 in an F-150 where it has auxiliary cooling. They have an additional air to fluid cooler. So the cooler, naturally, you can see it, that's going to go across the radiator, and that's going to be working its way into the cooling system. But if you look down at the bottom of this photo, you see designation flags 6 and 7. They're pointing at the external bypass. Now, the external bypass does exactly what the internal bypass does. It allows fluid to flow to it, and it bypasses it until it's time to release the fluid and go to the cooler and let the liquid cool it, and now the auxiliary cooler cool it to get the temperatures normalized and maintained under heavy duty use. What does this mean for F-150 owners that want to upgrade their transmission cooler? Basically, you would have to open your transmission up, get the bypass installed from a Mustang so you can use the components that everyone else uses in some sort of relation. The other option you have is you can add a cooler, but it has to be after this bypass, where you'd have to make some custom lines and do some stuff like that. It's not really super recommended, but it is a possibility for you. But really what I want to touch on, really who I want to hit home with, is the guys who do Coyote swaps. There's a lot of you out there that buy F-150 transmissions. Now what you have to be careful with, if you buy an F-150 transmission and it's Gen 2, 15 to 17, you have to be mindful if the bypass is installed. The thermostatic one, that is. Because if it's not, it's highly recommended that you do install it. Now, how do I know I have it? How do I know it's in there or not? Well, these thermostatic bypasses, I'm going to show you what they kind of look like here. Let me get the photo up. This is what one looks like. Now, this is a black and white photo of it, but typically they're going to be, the main body of them is going to be blue or silver. And what that means is you can actually see it when you pull the transmission cooler lines off. So, the bypass, let's see here. Here we go. This is a picture I just took out in our transmission room of a transmission we have out there. And you can see that the bottom port, you can see that blue valve, that is the thermostatic bypass body. Now this thing is installed actually vertically. So it basically spans across both of these openings. And on a 6R80, it is important to note that the top port, the one at the 12 o'clock position, the highest one, that is your in from the cooler. The bottom one is your out to the cooler. We're going to be making an update to our 6R80 fitting kits and actually laser engraving this on our retaining bracket, because it actually is the same on a 10R80. They're just in a different orientation, where a 10R80, the forward one, because they're laid horizontally, the forward one is your in and your rear one is your out. Now, if you look at your 6R80 and you don't see that blue or silver cylinder similar to this photo right here, there is a good chance that you do not have the thermostatic bypass. It was an externally bypassed transmission. And I would highly recommend dropping the valve body, buying one of these bypasses from Ford, and having it installed. At the same time, check your transmission out, make sure everything's safe, make sure there's no metal in the filter. You can cut those filters open and check them, just as a reminder. But I would recommend installing it. That way it works on par like everyone else's transmission. Your tuner doesn't have anything weird to contend with. You don't have to worry about potential issues. If I feel a hard shift or something else is a little bit different, hey guys, I got something going on, and you're the one guy on the island that has your bypass bypassed, you're going to be on your... There's not a whole lot of guys doing that, so you're not really known quantity, and you may run into some issues as far as, is this normal or not? So keep that in mind. I would like to see everyone with thermostatic bypass, just how the Mustangs come, and mimic that system. But this is a good way to identify whether you have it or not. I've been talking for a minute here. Let me just check. Oh, let's see. Are there any questions pertaining to this in the chat room? No, it sounds like everybody's just listening and watching. Okay, cool. All right, so this is what you would find, again, in your F-150s, only in Gen 2. Gen 1 doesn't have this. So if you buy a Gen 1 F-150 4x2, 4x4, or Mustang 4x2, you don't have to worry about this. F-150 in Gen 2, yes, you do have to worry about it. Now, a quick look inside of the transmission. Let's see here, expanded. Okay, so what do they look like inside the transmission? This is looking down into a transmission if it was flipped upside down on a workbench fixture. And you'll see that in diagram number 1, that is the thermostatic bypass with the spring. Number 2 shows it as just a general plug. That plug is essentially bypassing the thermostatic bypass. So it is a factory Ford part, and it would allow flow to happen 100% of the time out to the cooler, in hopes that you would have an external bypass or thermostatic bypass to allow the transmission to get up to temperature. So, does everybody understand what we're trying to portray here, what we're trying to tell you as far as what you have from the factory, what are the options when you're buying a used transmission, and how it applies to your swap or even your factory Ford vehicle? Because we did have somebody call us the other day trying to add an auxiliary cooler on their turbocharged F-150, and they had this external bypass. They had just had the transmission rebuilt, and guess what? You need to change it. So it would be best for them to change it. It would give them a lot more freedom as far as mounting the transmission cooler too, because in his case, he wanted to mount the cooler under the bed in the frame rail, and for him to do that, he would have to run from the external bypass, the thermostatic one, up front of the truck and run it all the way back, and that's just kind of silly. It would be also nice to eliminate all those cooling points, because all the heat from the transmission is also then being poured into the cooling system. It's more of a load on the cooling system itself too. So transmission temperature, oil temperature, is definitely relatable to the engine temperature itself. Christopher Robinson, thank you, brother. He writes cheap money. Thank you for the donation, man. It definitely helps grow the channel. If you guys have not subscribed to this channel yet, please do. There's a lot of questions and comments I get regularly, and YouTube shows me who is not subscribed, who is subscribed, and it's amazing how many people are not subscribed to our channel and have not hit that that notification button. It really, really helps our analytics, and there's repeat offenders. So I've been getting into the work, getting into the regular practice of asking folks to subscribe, because it definitely helps our channel. We're here to help. This is a free service to you, and we're here definitely to help you with any of your Coyote swaps, any questions pertaining to the stuff that we make. Let's see, who else has hopped in? Oh, Caleb is here from Foxcast. Welcome, Caleb, brother. David Martin, welcome. Let's see here. Is Zionis? Do you know if you can use a V6 transcooler lines with the Coyote? Man, I don't see why not. The 6R60 shares the same family. I believe our fittings fit in the 6R60, which is what the V6 Mustangs have. So I imagine you could. I don't see any big red flags as far as trying to do that. David Martin says he's in class taking notes on 6R80 101. Yes, there will be a test tomorrow, so make sure you're prepared. That's funny. Ryan Merrill's in the house. Ryan, I covered a lot of the 6R80 stuff that you asked me to cover. Hope that covered it. If you have any questions, need me to expand on anything, I'll just post it up in there for me. Christopher Robinson says he's late, and then he donated. Thank you. All right, so does anybody have any questions particular about the 6R80 cooling system? I'm going to show you what we offer as a solution to doing a custom transmission cooler for a 6R80. Now, this can be used across the board on all 6R80s and 6R60s. Even the 3.5 EcoBoost stuff that's found in the Raptors and the F-150s can use these fittings. They will fit. They will also fit 10R80s as well. So here is basically what we offer right from our webpage. And you can see the transmission cooler fittings are located right on the side of the transmission, and they bolt right in replacement. They are double O-ring. They come with a retaining bolt, retaining plate, and this plate is where we're going to laser engrave our in and out positions here in the near future. You'll also see our transmission cooler kit. The transmission cooler kit is an option. We do offer a fanned cooler. It's got a 500 CFM fan. It's designed. It comes with Dash 8 AN fittings and hose. It makes installing it a real breeze. And then you can wire it up to a key power trigger, because it's not going to hurt to go ahead and have that cooler on. The nature of this transmission cooling system is that it's going to go ahead and flow. It's going to go ahead and flow fluid to whatever cooler you have. and then block it from coming back into the transmission and hold it there until it's time to open up by temperature. Then that spring will open up and allow the fluid to go into the transmission. So it doesn't hurt to keep it cool while it's waiting. It's not going to hurt the transmission at all. It's just going to help you get a head start, just like you would with a lower temperature thermostat, having your electric fan on all the time. So things happen quick when it does get up to temperature. Now the 6R80 fittings, as a shameless plug here on our own channel about the topic that we're talking about, these guys are made here in the USA. They come pre-assembled. Pre-assembled, you can see the double O-ring. It's just like factory. It's got a nice landing pad there to make sure you have enough to grab onto with the retaining bracket. And you got your 90-degree fittings already on there in dash 8. Now these fittings, when they're installed, here, I'll hold it up to the camera, see if it'll focus on it. Maybe not. There we go. Once they're installed, you can rotate them 360 degrees before you hold down the fittings and lock them in place with the retaining bracket. There we go. And then it comes with its own bolt too. And the retaining bracket will basically work like, will basically be like that on the transmission itself. So as you can see, you can rotate these guys any which way you want. They do not collide with each other in one way, so if you wanted to put one this way, that way, up over the bell housing, to the rear, whatever, you get the idea. They're $129.99. They're made here in the USA, and they are a big part of our catalog. It's one of our top-selling products. The transmission cooler kit, like I said, it is an option. We outfit it with the best quality fittings that we can put into the kit, lines, and cooler, so we can have good supply, because we sell these quite a bit. And they come with universal mounting flanges, so you can definitely get what you need done. You can go on our website and search for the transmission cooler fittings and the transmission cooler. They're both listed on each other's product listings as an option, and you can see a lot of the photos there as well. This will definitely help anybody doing a Coyote swap or modifying their transmission cooling system, whether it be their 6R80, 6R60, or 10R80. All right, so let's see here. Mark Warren says he digs the new background. Thank you so much, Mark. That actually took me a couple hours to set up, but overall worked for 2 days to get that worked up and working. So definitely appreciate the love on that, because it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears there. Eric Schraven says, asks, how often do you recommend changing fluid and filter on the 6R80? I would try to do regular service intervals. Regular service intervals, I consider to be once a year if you're not hitting your 30,000 mile mark like it would be in a factory vehicle. Ford will tell you do it every 100,000 miles. Now this is all relative to how much performance you're packing in to the driving experience of your 6R80. If you're cruising, maybe the hardest I hit it is on the highway, and I cruise it down to Mustang Week or Foxtoberfest twice a year. I might do a burnout in front of the neighbor's house when he pisses me off, but I don't take it to the track. I'm not bracket racing. I don't have 900 horsepower. You can really rely on factory service intervals. You can move it up in the schedule just to make sure everything's happy and safe, especially on the first time around. But, Ford will tell you, hey, 90,000 miles, change the fluid, flush it, that kind of stuff. We don't like flushing these transmissions, by the way. Don't flush them. Just change the fluid, change the filter, cut the filter open, see what the material looks like, and see if there's anything of concern, any metal slivers, that kind of stuff in the fluid itself. And always service it with Mercon LV and Motorcraft filters if you can. There are alternatives to Mercon LV. Mercon LV right now is the only fluid we've ever used, so that's why we recommend it. There might be something great on the shelf from Redline or whoever out there. We've never used it to give you an honest opinion on it, so it's up to you to figure out for yourself. But service intervals, if you're really beating the snot out of this thing, I would consider checking the fluid at minimum after a weekend at the track, right? And a nice, easy way of checking the transmission fluid condition, and the 6R80s are a little tricky. You never can check this fluid with the engine off and the engine not at running operating temperature, right? Now, The 6R80 transmission does have a dipstick. You just can't get it in the engine bay. It's a stubby little thing. It looks like a lug nut on the passenger side of the transmission itself. There's a cap. You remove the cap. And again, with the engine, the transmission at operating temperature and it running, you then release the dipstick and you pull it out and you check your fluid level. It's very important that it is accurate and in a good position. But what you can do while the vehicle's running, nothing's going to come flying out. That only happens if you do it if the engine's off, because the fluid level rises and it goes above that, and then you don't get a good reading. You get fluid all over your grandma's driveway, that kind of stuff. All right, so check the dipstick and make sure it's in the right operating range. But you can also just take a white piece of paper and put a dab on that piece of paper. What would happen is, if there's any material in there, you'll see it. The paper kind of disperses the fluid and it gives you acts like a little bit of a filter, and you can kind of see what's in there. For a really good look at it, you just drop the pan, see what's in the bottom of the pan, and you'll also see what's in the filter by looking at it, maybe cutting it open and everything. So if you go to NMRA Spring Break Shootout and you run True Street and do hits, check your fluid at the end of the weekend. If you see anything in there, service it or address it as needed. If you're just cruising the car and having fun every once in a while, I go to test and tune on a Friday night, or I go have fun with the guys, try to move your service interval up, let's say 15 or 30,000 miles, whatever you're comfortable at. But that's with inspections. If inspections show that everything's okay, there's no reason to change it. The fluid's nice, bright, and red. There's no reason to go in there and change it early. Definitely check it. If you're just driving and cruising, check your fluid every 30,000 miles. Check it annually if you're not doing that mileage. Same with your brake fluid and all that stuff. So hopefully that kind of clears up what you got going on. Jose Delgado, thank you very much, man. He didn't say much there. He just gave a donation to the channel. I really appreciate it, brother. It is definitely a labor of love here. All right. So, let's see here. That was Eric Schraven. Let's see where we left off. Jordan Dunning, late to the party. Hey, Frank. Hey, man. What's going on? Thank you for joining us. Ryan Merrill says, I don't have much room because of the twin turbo setup up front. Where is a good place to mount the transcooler? I had the PBH brackets. They are awesome. The trick with mounting it under the car and in the rear, especially if you have a Fox body, there isn't a whole lot of room in the rear of the car. There isn't a whole lot of space to work with. The bumpers are really tight and high up off the ground, so it's hard to conceal it. And the fuel tanks are pretty invasive. They're big, they're wide, and they hang low. Exhaust is also something to contend with as well. What I have seen guys do is mount it vertically between the bumper cover and the metal bumper itself, and using the bumper out back as a mounting pad to try to mount the transmission cooler, and then basically venting the rear bumper so that the air coming up through there then goes out. But you kind of need a GT bumper or a Cobra bumper to get away with this. An LX bumper is going to help you with this. You'd have to mount it way up there to get it out of the basically conceal it so it's not just hanging out in the midair. Same with the belly of the vehicle. It's the Fox bodies. Unless you got GT side skirts, everything's visible. You got two mufflers right where the seats, kind of the back seat bulkhead is. So there isn't a whole lot of real estate to play with. So typically on the Fox bodies, what we try to do is go forward in the corners at an angle. So think about where your corner lamp is and straight down 6 o'clock, mounting it at an angle on that corner out of the way, so that the fan has room to play with and there is some movement of air down there. If you have twin turbos and you're occupying that space, then there is an option to do something flat, horizontal, between the radiator and let's say the balancer, and mounting brackets there, maybe to the K member or something else, to hang it there so that you do get some air movement and it's out of the way, because you really are short on real estate where the intercooler sits in the front bumper. It's really tight up there. One of the cars that we played with this a lot was Sergio Rojas's car, which isn't Coyote swapped. He's got a 331 with a single turbo. It's a dark blue Celine that has a 4R70W. And in his car, real estate is at a premium. He's got, I think, a 5-inch intercooler. I mean, it's big. And even that twin turbo Cobra that we built for Wayne Mumajim, which I just found out he sold it, to another gentleman that posted up some pictures and video here in the Coyote swap boards on the Fox body pages and stuff like that. That car, we really had to play with the transmission cooler and find a spot because we had a big intercooler in the front, we had an AC condenser and the radiator. It was definitely 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. So I would look at your front engine bay in the corners. Headlight back, kind of at an angle. So if you got consider this to be the right front of your Fox body, kind of mounting at an angle low in the bumper area there so you can get some air up into it and the fan has some room to play with. Terry likes the rotation. Thank you, Terry. Mark Warren's asked, question about my Fox install. Could I use an F-150 cooler like out of the 1114 truck down low? Not a track car, just a nice driver. So Mark, you'll have to clarify for me in the chat. Are you talking about that external bypass and liquid-to-liquid cooler? Because I believe all the F-150s that have the auxiliary cooler, it goes across the radiator and condenser in the front like a traditional cooler would. Just update that for me in the chat. We'll circle back to it. Mr. King, not related to the 6R80, but for your built 10R80, how much power would you say they can handle? Right now, we're not doing much different, much else other than changing the frictions and steels with the Raybestos GBZ frictions. We're not adding additional ones. We don't really have anything beyond that. We haven't had the reps with it like we did with the 6R80 to develop the parts that we did. Manuel Gomez, I believe, out of Midnight Performance, that guy has the 10R80s licked right now. He has some special stuff that he's doing. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can go to the London Racing Facebook page or even Alex Flores' page, and he talked about it in his live show last night. They got a stock Gen 3 or S550 18 to 19 car with his own turbo kit and his built 10R80. This thing's running bottom eights with a stock motor and a 10R80 with frictions and steels in there. It's got some special stuff going on that helps to keep that 10R80 alive. The 10R80s particularly have an issue because the 1-to-1 that is kind of the power gear and the slipping that it does. Sometimes they shift so fast they actually don't shift. They skip gears and they just kind of hear them go down the track. It's very rare to hear them crisp shifting. And you watch that video, you can hear it crisply just shifting every gear down the track, which helps tremendously. But what was I going to say here? The 1-to-1 gear is in 7th, and 7th is the smallest clutch pack in the transmission. So, in particular, they have an issue there. So, I would say the stuff that we do, 800 horsepower, it's pretty safe too. But if you're really beating the snot out of it, you're going to encounter some slip potentially in the higher gears if you get more aggressive as it wears in. If you want to go beyond 800 horsepower, I would definitely contact the guys at Midnight Performance about getting that 10R80 rebuilt currently, until more components and more knowledge becomes available, and it might be something that we end up offering here. We don't know right now. We're not really digging too deep into it. We don't have a whole lot of customers in that realm that are playing with it, mainly the 6R80 stuff and the 4R200 stuff that we do. Let's see here. Eric, just circling back on what you mentioned and the answer I gave you, he says, thanks, I'm around 425 wheel and drive it hard sometimes, and a few trips to the drag strip, just turned 30K miles. Yeah, I would check it. I mean, get it safely up on jack stands, on a lift, get it up to temperature, maybe not after a 30-minute drive home where everything's just like piping hot. Fire it up in the morning, get it in place, let it idle, let it get up to temperature. If you don't have an N-gauge or something to tell you your transmission temperature, it might be a little harder. Maybe let it idle for about 10 to 15 minutes or something like that to be safe. But once you get up past 200, 210 degrees, idling in that arena, then go ahead and pull that dipstick out and measure your fluid, see where your fluid level is, and take a sample of it. If you have any questions on the condition of it, you can always email me, info@pbhperformance.com, snap a picture of it, send it to me. If I don't have a great answer for you, I'll show it to one of our guys, and they'll tell you what they think of it. They're a lot more knowledgeable than I am, but if I can pretty much pick up on all the red flags there, right? Eric Copeland, hey Frank, hey, will a Gen 1 Mustang oil filter housing bolt up to a Gen 1 F-150 block? It will. we offer a oil filter relocation kit. Now that oil filter relocation kit is essentially the F-150 components without the fluid-to-fluid cooler. Now the other option you have, if the F-150 oil filter position isn't working for you, you could take that cooler off, that's sandwiched between the oil filter housing and the oil filter. All you have to do is change out to the Mustang stud, remove the stud that's in there that allows the cooler to be mounted, and then the oil filter, and you can shorten that assembly. If that's not short enough and you want to use the Mustang housing, you could change the housing, but be mindful that the FL500 filter that's on the Mustang housing, the position now is it's going to come out and come straight down, which typically can be a problem for sway bar and steering rack clearance and some of the swap suspensions. Let's see here. That was Eric. Coyote Car Guy, what's going on, man? Thanks for checking in. Mark Warren, the liquid to air cooler from a truck with towing package, not the one with the bypass. You could use that. The factory coolers, there's really nothing wrong with using them. They're good quality coolers. We don't see cooling issues typically in the factory cars, and that's how we can say that. So if you can mount that and plumb it, you could use it. Now, you're not going to find half-inch MPT ports on it to adapt fittings to AN lines. That's really the only bugger about trying to use the factory stuff. They're usually either hoses with clamps or hard steel lines. Now, you could modify those steel lines. Cut them, weld a steel bung on them, and then you can continue the line AN, or try to use some sort of compression clamp. Our preference is using AN lines and making sure everything is secure and tidy and robust. If you want to do it another way, at your own risk, go ahead and do it. Use your best judgment on what you've done to make sure that it is safe for you. But yes, you could totally use it if you have it and plumb it to fit your project. Let's see here. That was Mark Warren. JRF, what does one need to use your dyno? Just got a email too. And JRF, I would email us, info@pbhperformance.com. It's at the bottom of the screen here. Or you can call us 561-737-2331. Call us tomorrow. Talk to Christian. He handles all the dyno stuff. Right now we are waiting for some parts to come in for our dyno because it did have an issue recently. But from time to time we do book some horsepower pulls to finish some Lund Racing tuning if you're at that point. The key is to make sure you do all your data logging, get to the point where you need pulls, because at that point we know the vehicle is ready for the dyno 110%. And all we have to do is make a few pulls and they're ready for you, and it's a nice quick process. Unfortunately, we're not a full functioning dyno facility anymore like we used to, where we had spark plugs and all the technician on site, and we can address problems that could arise on the dyno. So you have to make sure before it gets here, all you're coming to do is to make those horsepower hits, get the data to Lund. They're going to make some changes, maybe it strives for some power, and go. Even with that said, it's a drop-off service. Not something we can do on site or by appointment or time. So if you're going to use our dyno and bring it for Lund Racing, typically it's a day visit at minimum. All right, so Jeff Ashlock, you're welcome, brother. He posts up great info as usual. You're welcome, absolutely. If you have any questions about this stuff, need me to go back on anything, just email us or post up here in the chat. Hopefully I'll grab it. Drunk, well, I'm going to pronounce it. Hopefully I don't get dinged for bad language, but drunk motherfucker. Love the new background. Thank you, brother. I like it too. And we can change the colors on it. We can actually set those lights to change colors based on my voice, which would give us all seizures. Gavin Stanley, love the content, man. So helpful with all the pics and in-depths. Brought a huge shipment of your parts on my way. Shout out to Frank Pezzo for all the amazing help. Yep, love Frank. We got a great crew of guys. Frank Pezzo, Christian Papa, Travis Dean, and myself on the phone. In the background, we got Jake. We got Mike Chamberlain, who's our tech. We got our warehouse guys, Matt and Tim, who is the head of our warehouse in the back there in purchasing. So we got a great crew of guys. Love coming to work. Love working with all these guys. It definitely shows in our product and our enthusiasm as well. Let's see here. Gavin Stanley, if you need any help, I don't know who you're speaking to. If you need any help, he's awesome. I bet all his coworkers are amazing too. Okay. Thank you. Mr. King, looking to get a Gen 3 A10 and want 900 horsepower, definitely hit up Midnight Performance. That 8.0 pass was badass shit. Absolutely. At that power level, I'd say it'd be pushing the components that we have readily available, so I'll definitely reach out to them and see what they got going on. JRF, you're welcome, brother. Anytime. Eric Shraven, thanks for all the great information. You're absolutely welcome. Product updates. We do have some 3-valve stuff going on. 3-valve harnesses have been a hot topic since we leaked information about them so many times in the past, and we thought we'd be a lot further along with them at this point. But we do have one over at Dover's. We're working through some kinks that he's run into. I know Caleb knows about them. He's documenting the build on his channel, and we're going to be working with him to make sure we get all that stuff taken care of. We got some other guys out there that have the harnesses that have them installed and aren't having any issues. So we have some stuff to work through and identification. I think what might be happening potentially with some of the cars is a production date split somewhere between 06 and 07 that could be a problem for us. So we got to kind of weed that out before we start selling them out there. A couple more comments coming in. Rob, so should we install external bypass on a Gen 1? Absolutely not. Use the internal one. The internal one works absolutely swimmingly. Guys have gone 7s with the internal bypass, the stock one. Stock one with a transmission cooler. Fastest 6R80s on the planet, have that. So why would we need to change any of that? At this point, not enough evidence is out there that you need to modify that at all. External bypass is where it's problematic because, again, you can't use readily available parts to then add a transmission cooler, and you got to hook your cooling system to it. So why deal with all that stuff? Keep it simple, stupid. The Mustang system is as good as we've seen for the 6R80 and as easy to hook up and modify as we've seen. This is the I don't even know how to say. The Reese, some cool stuff. The Rice, I don't even know how to say your name, bro. So anyway, we'll go to your comment. Frank, does anyone upgrade the direct injectors on the Gen 3 Coyote? Seems like it would be a no-brainer in conjunction with a fuel rail. We saw some when we went to SEMA or PRI, Nostradamus. They offered some upgraded DI injectors at the time. I would definitely check into that. There might be some other companies out there, but Nostrum was the one company I remember and we spoke to in depth. Terry says he wants some green color. Terry wants some green color. Let's see if we can get Terry some green color in the background here. Let's see if this works. Okay, there we go. Terry, we should have some green color. One of the Bluetooth ones isn't working. Let's see here. All right, well, we got some green back there for you, Terry. How's that look? One of them is not working. Then we can turn up the heat too. There we go. There's a little bit of green for you, Terry. Hopefully you can see that. JRF, I did the data logs for Lund. Alex said everything looked good and I'm not having any issues. I did ported 2018 JLT 110, 93 tune on 16 GT. Just wanted to get the dyno horsepower. Okay, so if you're just looking for horsepower pulls, we'll log it during the horsepower pulls. Definitely contact us and get with Christian to see if he can get you booked some time on there once we get the dyno back up and running, brother. Lorenzo Enzo, regarding the AC lines in an 05 to 09, are they in the same location for a GT and V6? I believe they are in the same location, but there's different connection points at the V6 compressor. So you may have to change some lines if you're going to be using the GT compressor in particular. That's typically how Ford has done it in the past and what we've seen on the GT, the modular Ford V8s versus the V6s. Eric Shraven says there is some cool stuff. Oh boy. Alex Flores has joined us and has requested the strobe light show in the background. I don't know if you guys are ready for that. Let's see here. Let's go to style. And let's see. Oh Lord. We're doing it. Oh my Lord. Let's see. How about green strobe? Green strobe. Oh boy. We got to speed that up. It's a party in here. We need a smoke machine now. Oh, yeah. Green strobes for Terry and Alex. That's full speed there. Is everybody okay? I don't want to find out anybody had a seizure during this part of the show. We do have a rainbow jumping change. Check that out. Oh, yeah. That's festive. That's very festive. Anything for you guys. And that is as a special request to Alex, who did donate to the channel. Thank you so much, my friend. A disco ball would be neat. It'd be neat if I can hang one up here and hook it on a strobe. Every time somebody donates something, we turn it on or something, or hit the smoke machine. Can you flash, let's see here, Furion 450, can you flash a manual Gen 2 computer to an auto Gen 2 computer? No. I don't think you can. I don't think you can successfully or easily. Gen 2 computer stuff, just like Gen 1 computer stuff, you could probably get the automatic stuff to kind of work, but it's going to be looking for the wiring in the computer for the automatic components on those PIDs, even if you change even if you change the calibration. So I would stay away from it myself. There we go. Full green. Boom. All right, so I would stay away from it myself. I would just get the correct computer and use it, because when you do change that calibration, if you're in an S550 and you're trying to do a transmission swap or something like that, the calibration change is going to have to then go into all the other modules as well. So it's a little bit problematic. Let's see here. Another question. Any idea how much the DI injectors flow? I'm not, honestly, man, I'm not, this is for the DI injector question. I'm not fully versed on those. So if I did say something, I may not be accurate. So I'm going to stay away from that. I would definitely speak to your calibrator and see what they say about those DI injectors and changing them, because that's going to be a big part of what's going on there. And then you can also contact those manufacturers themselves directly and see what they say. Ryan Merrill says you need one of those seizure warnings now. Yeah, and a Prop 65 warning. All this that I'm telling you right now could cause cancer. Now, by the way, if anybody's in California, you're not going to be allowed to buy gas vehicles in 2035. Now, pretty interesting they set it that far out, because I think that day is coming sooner than later, even with a mandate. But gas-powered vehicles outlawed in California starting in 2035. Interesting. Alejandro Flores checking in, giving some epileptic seizure support. Thank you. And JB also donating to the channel for the Tacuache stash. Tacuache stash in stock. PBH. What other? Ford More Performance checks in asking me who is my favorite Magnum XL builder. I've never sent a Magnum XL out specifically. I know we did one with, I want to say with RPM transmissions. I think we did 2 of them. That was for the Texas Mile GT500s that we were involved with back in the day. I've heard of other builders out there, like I want to say Tick Performance, Astro Performance is another good source for that as well. There's a lot of good guys out there that do them, and they have different takes on how they do them. So I would definitely do some research and see who's a good fit for you. I think it was RPM Transmissions that made Tranzilla, which was based on the Magnum XL. And then you had Tick and then Astro Performance. Call all of them. See what they say. Get them on the phone. If they don't answer you, then maybe that's a bad sign, because if you have a problem with their transmission, are they going to answer you? That's something to definitely consider. Support is a big part of the purchase. They can make the best shit in the world, but if they don't back it up and they don't communicate well, yeah, problem. Let's see here. 2000 MCR, well, that escalated quickly. Yeah, absolutely. Smoke machines next with Pina Colada scent. Tick Performance is a recommendation from Alex. Ben Calamer. Yeah, I forgot about Ben. Ben's a good source as well. And RPM. Ben is definitely a good source in that arena for the Magnums. Furion 450. What's the go-to hydraulic throwout bearing for a Coyote swap with a T56? Throwout bearing. throwout bearing. I know Ram makes one, and so does McLeod. Some of them have some trick stuff where, like, there's a release setting to them that you can play with. Honestly, I've always used the stock stuff, if possible, in the MT82s and the GP500s. Now, if you're in a T56, you may have some limited options there, but I would definitely contact maybe Tilton, Ram, Mike Norsha at Ram, the guys at McLeod. Those are all very strong companies with really good reputations when it comes to those components, and they all have different stuff. And then kind of feel out what the community is using and having good success with. I know Ram had something trick as far as a release bearing, where maybe you can restrict it, so if you're doing hard launches, you can try to control the launch so it's not as instant. You can maybe induce a little bit of slip in particular with the hydraulic slave. Oh, okay. Yeah, some guy, Ryan's mentioning he used the center force and had some issues with it after one season. So, alrighty, guys, I'm going to check out for the night. It is 8:02. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and for your comments and your support in the super chat. If you have any questions about what we covered here tonight, info@pbhperformance.com. If you want one of the PBH hats like we showed you earlier in the show, frank@pbhperformance.com is the email you're going to send that to. If there's something in the show that we covered you need us to expand upon, you can email us or post a comment on the video. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do that. I implore you to please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell and hit all so you don't miss any of our live shows or any of the videos that we do. We're going to be working on some more videos here. We've got to get to them, but we've been swamped on the phones and on emails and getting to all the customer inquiries and engines and stuff like that that we're selling. So we'll get back in the studio now that we got this set up. We'll be able to do a lot more videos, a lot easier for the YouTube channel as far as the product videos and so forth. And we do still have Denny Sullivan's yellow New Edge, the Coyote swap one. We're putting the Edelbrock blower on. We're going to get back to that here either this week or next week to get it completed and get it on the dyno. And then we'll spit out a video on that whole process. We put a T56 Magnum in that one. We put the Edelbrock 2650 supercharger on it with our speed drive. We did a whole fuel system using 4 Innovations components. It's a really, really nice car. I can't wait to get it done and get some really, really cool video of it. I want to thank you guys all for joining me, all the guys in the chat room. It's great talking with you guys once a week and in between. And again, if you have any questions, call us 561-737-2331. You can find us on social media through Facebook and on Instagram. YouTube channel, of course. We're here right now. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Hit all. Please. It definitely helps our analytics, helps our channel grow, helps get our message out to more and more guys out there that are just like you in the middle of your builds or are starting or maybe even thinking about doing those builds. Share the video if you can. It really, really helps grow our reach. And we want to get out there to as many guys as possible, try to be as helpful as possible. Thank you again for all the donations. They go right back into the channel. And we love you guys for that. It's very, very humbling. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week, Wednesday. Comment in this video, if you're rewatching it, on any topics that you might want to hear covered. It's always good. It helps me organize the shows and come up with stuff that you guys are working with directly. Whether it's performance-based, 6R80, 10R80-based, Coyote swap-based, whatever, even chassis. Hit me up. We can get you the answers that you need or at least point you in the right direction. So, thank you again, guys. It's been fun. We will catch you next week. Hit us up if you have any questions. See you later.